What's up, family? Day 4, Black History Month. Like we said, we want to get it real. We celebrated 25/8/366, but during this month, we're doing a special focus. But see, this is really what I want to talk about because as you can see, this is not your average Black History Month program. And that's why I put the warnings, because if you come in here for a soft, Philly, touchy Black History Month, it's probably not for you. Because as you can see in the title, it said, in all thy getting, get an understanding. You know, as a former educator, well, I'm still an educator, but as a former school teacher, we would go over these things called Bloom's taxonomy. And some people say, well, that's a little outdated. And with Bloom's taxonomy, kind of gave way to Webb's depth of knowledge. But what I love about both of these programs is because what it talks about is what's the hierarchy of learning. You know, the first thing on both of them is like a level 1. What is my recall? What is my knowledge? How can I gain this information? So that's where I learned to memorize things so I can regurgitate. I might not know what I'm saying, but I can give you some information. But see, the next level is a little bit higher because now I have an understanding. I have a comprehension. Now I can start to problem solve. Once I start to problem solve, guess what? Now I can start to apply these measures that I got. But not only can I apply them, now I can make predictive type of measures. Because you know what? I went from a skill concept to now, you know what? I'm a strategic thinker. I dare say critical thinker. Now where I'm able to what? Make hypotheses. I'm able to debate with the arguments I've had. I'm able to make predictions. But at the highest of levels, whether it's Bloom's taxonomy, whether it's Webb's depth of knowledge, it's that ability to now I can create new material. Not only can I read between the lines, but now I'm the author that write those words between the lines to see if you're quick enough to catch it. And you say, well, what does this have to do with Black history? Oh, that's what we're talking about. See, Black history sometimes, I sometimes wonder, I said, what are we doing here? I said, is this for commercialization now? Is this to be able to say, hey, I can spot out some Jeopardy facts? Or is it just people are just like plain ignorant with some of the stuff that they do? Some of the things I see posted around this time, it absolutely befuddles me. And I'm not without a sense of humor, but I'm like, okay, what are we doing with this knowledge that we get? So we're going to dedicate these 28 days. So what do we do with this knowledge that we get? And so what I say, in all thy getting, get an understanding. See, one of my favorite people in the world is Dr. Asa Hillard. And Dr. Asa Hillard is an educational psychologist. And he wrote many articles. And actually he was quoted in another one of my favorite authors, Anthony Browder. See, you know, people want me to talk about Anthony Browder. Yeah, he's a philosopher. Yes, he's an author. Yes, he's been to Egypt for over 30 years, and he studies on this. Asa Hillard is one of the pioneer Black psychologists. See, I could go on and give you some information, some knowledge, so you can regurgitate it, but I need you to go look up that on your own. But let me read something to you that Asa Hillard wrote. And this is quoted in Dr. Browder's book. In 1976, so think about this, 1976, Dr. Hillard wrote the introduction to Stolen Legacy, another great book to get, which documents the Greek plagiarism of Egyptian science, philosophy, and religion. In the introduction, he discusses the concept of a mental slave as a person totally unaware that his mind is shackled and his capacity for thought is limited for those who control and access the knowledge of the past. According to Dr. Hilliard, a mental slave is a greater victim of bondage than a physical slave. One of Dr. Hilliard's ongoing efforts to eradicate mental slavery is to push for the development of an Afrocentric curriculum within the public school system. The concept of cultural democracy in education, which includes contributions of all ethnic groups, is spreading like wildfire throughout the U.S. And the reason why I laugh is because that's beautiful, but when I rewind and I fast forward now to 2022, and I see how the word critical race theory has been hijacked, and I see how people don't want people to understand the past, I can't help but to think about Ruby Bridges. And there's a meme out with Ruby Bridges now, and we see this 6-year-old who's still living today. She's 67, has children. We see her going to school, integrating to school, being treated like less than a human being, has to be protected by federal marshals. And they said, if she could go to school in that, for sure your children should learn about it. But why don't they want them to learn about it? Well, you know why? Because it would make them feel bad. But also, when the Black children start to learn about who they are, when other marginalized groups start to learn who they are, you know what? A different sense of pride comes, a different sense of capability, and now my chest is poked out, and now I don't want to settle for less. And now you know what I'm doing? I'm upsetting the cart. I'm upsetting the status quo. So now what we got to do is say, you know what? We're gonna break these bands and bands and chains of mental slavery. And you know what we're gonna go into? We're gonna start to read, and we're gonna start to learn. And then you know what we're gonna do? All the places where they deodorize, where they sanitize, where they sterilize. As Professor Brother Cornell West say, what? We're going to bring back the funk. And we got to see the funk. Yeah, we want the funk. We got to have the funk. You know why? Because it's in that ugliness and that we learn. But also, when you learn from the past, you're not going to repeat it. But for those who do not know the past, you are doomed to repeat the past. So it's so important for us. So when we see the lies, we have to uncover them. So I want you to look at the screen right now. And I want you to see from a clear language standpoint how they try to put the what? The okie doke on us. Play the Jedi mind trip. They tell you that a slave was a slave. But we know that a slave was a hostage. It's not an involuntary immigrant. Don't try to sexy it up. Our ancestors were slaves. No, they were kidnapped. The people who took them were criminals. Slave owners are human traffickers. You know where we put human traffickers today? We put them in jail. We put them in prison. We talk about slave catchers. No, they weren't slave catchers. They the police. And anybody who's a police, and even for my brothers who I love that are the police, it's an extension of the slave catching system. We know that. And so what it is still another arm of the government. It's paramilitary to keep people in order, black or white, no matter what color, specifically those who are from a lower SES status, to make sure what? That the status quo stays in place. We talk about things like plantations. Why don't we call them concentration camps? Whoopi Goldberg just got in trouble for talking about anything that you talk about with the Jews. If you mess with their history, they're going to make sure they slap you and say, no, we ain't playing with this. You're going to respect this. And I respect that. And we're going to do the same thing. No, we were not slave plantations. Those were Holocaust. Those were concentration camps. Those were prisoners. We were prisoners of war kept against our will. You hear terms like, oh, Thomas Jefferson loved Sally Hemings. No, you cannot consent with that type of power differential. So it was not a mistress that was a rape victim. It was not a belly warmer. It was a person who you took advantage of sexually. Let's say what it is. When we talk about discipline, remember we talked about Samuel Cartwright and Drapetomania? We had to whip the devil out of them. If we did to our children, in which black folks, we got to understand that corporal punishment is an extension of slavery. So when somebody back, we got to whip the devil out of them. That stuff is still in our mind, the mental slavery. Oh, no, we whoop our kids. No, you can discipline, but you ain't got to beat them. So when we start thinking about this, this is the terminology that we still use. We always laugh at Oprah Winfrey and Harpo. You told Harpo to beat me. Why? Because that was what she knew from that Miss Silly. But it's that same, we laugh at that, but we still repeat it with our children. And then we wonder why they act out aggressively. Because they're doing what they're taught, because we're in these mental slaveries. Overseers. No, those were torturers. Those were sadists. When we talk about profit that they made, oh, these were businessmen. No, they were thieves. They stole off our back. And that's why we owe reparations. Oh, that's a whole nother topic and we coming to it. So this is what I want to say. Person who I used to always talk about with Black History Month, but I can't talk about now, is a person who's been canceled by our society. And that's Dr. William H. Cosby. And you know what? If he did what he did, man, it hurts my heart, but can't do that. But I do know this. Man, he did some wonderful things. I learned through the Cosby Kids. I learned through the Cosby Show. And I can honestly say the things that he presented helped me as a man. I don't know about the other stuff. But I tell you what, if you want to cancel Bill Cosby, okay. Well, then we're going to cancel George Washington. We're going to cancel John Adams. We're going to cancel, not John Adams, he didn't have no say, but we're going to cancel Thomas Jefferson. We're going to cancel James Madison. We're going to cancel James Monroe. We're going to cancel Martin Van Buren. Why? Because these great leaders of America who did so many great things, guess what? They had slaves. No, they had kidnapped victims. So if we canceling people, we canceling everybody. We're not just going to cancel Robert E. Lee, but what? They're not going to say this. Even now, right now, they say, oh, you're getting a little too much. This ain't what Black History about. No, this is exactly what Black History about. We're not just getting to the knowledge part with the depths of knowledge and Bloom's taxonomy. We're going to the highest levels, because how can we ever maximize ourselves if we're not honest with ourselves? Don't be afraid of the truth. Learn the truth. But then when you learn that truth, Learn that truth and love. Don't repeat the errors of your enemies. Don't repeat the errors of the past. Strive to be a better person. Strive, not talking about being higher while you're getting beat. I'm talking about once you've made it to the top, now you strive to show how it should be. I'm the Blacksmith. This is day 4 of Black History Month. Oh, we're going to get it popping. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day.